The second day of the inquest into Nicola Bulley's death has come to a close, but many are still left with more questions. Is this really the end of the case that has mystified us for months? Yesterday, during the first day of the proceedings, we learned that she died from drowning and that there was no third party involved, at least that's what we were told. We were also told that Nicola apparently died in seconds after a woman nearby heard her scream and that her Fitbit reported a heart rate for 8 days after she died, losing its power on February 4th, one day after the car park was cordoned off at Skippool Creek. We also learnt of a man in black wearing a beanie hat that for some reason we were not given a description of at the time when there was a mother of 2 missing in mysterious circumstances. How the police knew that there wasn't a perpetrator on the loose is anyone's guess, especially when a man in black, wearing a beanie hat chased a woman along a canal path and tried to grab her in broad daylight off Barrowford Road, Pendle, Lancashire on Saturday, January 7th, just 20 days earlier and just 40 miles away. We have put the link to this article in the description. So far, we also haven't been told exactly how Nicola got over the weir without being seen. All we have been given is accounts of a lowly PC who floated down the wire and had a scout about in some reeds. And the witness accounts that we've been asked to believe so far are so confusing and twisted and difficult to work out, it's almost as if it is a deliberate attempt to tie us up in knots and confuse us further. We also haven't been told why the police were sniggering on the bank of the River Wyre while recovering her body in a distasteful display in front of an audience that they must surely have seen were filming from the other side of the river. We have a feeling that the fingers and toes of Lancashire police are sore right now after tightly crossing them in the hope that we will swallow the nonsense that we've been fed over the last 2 days. With dramatic news stories in the news to capture our attention and the blanket ban on anything to do with Nicola Bulley, they hope and prayed and believed that the general public would forget the finer details of this case just in time enough for the inquest, when they would quickly throw out a few tidbits to wrap it all up and we will all move on with our lives. It is true, now, though, that many have given up searching for the truth of this case, but the battle-hardy soldier on because that part of our stomach at the pit which says that something is wrong here will not be wrapped up in a nice neat yellow bow and sent off floating down the wire where thousands of people searching can't see it. As for all of the characters in the story of Nicola Bulley, we very much doubt they'll be seen again. Emma White is just one example, who seems to have been wiped from the face of the earth. On the second day of the inquest at the County Hall in Preston, which was for some reason heavily guarded by droves of police on horseback, we have been told by her former GP Dr. Rebecca Gray, that there was nothing in Nicola Bulley's medical records to suggest she was contemplating taking her own life or harming herself, but it was said that Ms. Bulley had spoken to Dr. Gray about feeling a low mood and anxiety since 2018, later telling of headaches, fatigue, and lack of sleep. We also learned that Nicola Bulley did not appear depressed despite concerns over her increased drinking, a mental health clinician, so which is it? And the January 10th incident has also been explained away. Teresa Lewis-Levy told the inquest she attended Ms. Bulley's house on January 10th along with a police officer and paramedic following concerns about her welfare. Ms. Bulley appeared intoxicated on her bed and spoke of having lost weight. However, when asked if she appeared depressed, Ms. Levy said, no, not that I could ascertain at the time. And Nicola Bulley's sister is said to have cried as she spoke during the inquest. Louise Cunningham said, "Nikki was my big sister, very much a planner. She started her career again, a busy mum, as most people are, juggling a career and family life. She always had things under her control." She also said her sister had spoken to her about having trouble sleeping. She said she discussed having some symptoms with the HRT. It was back in the summer of 2022. She was having headaches, she couldn't get the balance exactly right, she mentioned having struggles sleeping. She was taking lavender spray, herbal tea, anything that would relax her before bed. She had a blip over Christmas 2022, but she was back on the HRT medication in January and back to work and back to the normal Nikki. Ms. Cunningham also said her sister was drinking more heavily over that period and that she never confided in her about thoughts of ending her life. Talking of her sister's pet, she said, "Willow was like a third child. Willow is nearly 8 and I'm not sure Nikki missed a dog walk. She would always find time in her day." She went on, "There's no way Nikki would leave Willow unattended by herself. Nicola was said to have been planning a spa day with her sister, Louise, and she spoke of it during the inquest saying, "I literally confirmed it was booked, but she didn't pick up the message." Louise also told of an apparent blip her sister had over Christmas, which would perhaps explain away the lack of Facebook posts during the period. She said, "The blip over the Christmas period happened, but in January she was back to herself, looking forward to the future, and everything was on the up." She went on, "She had a good day the day before she went missing, came home full of beans, excited with work, with the meetings she had and plans for the year. And the moment we all waited for came and went in the blink of an eye." Dr. James Aidley, the senior coroner in Lancashire, asked Paul Ansell if Nicola had any thoughts of ending her life. He replied, "There were a couple of throwaway comments during the blip period, but nothing that gave me any concern." He did manage to pay tribute to his partner, saying that she was an incredible mum. He went on, "Nikki was a quiet person who enjoyed the simple side of life. She was a very private person and kept herself to herself." He then started crying and was taken away. Nicola's mother, Dorothy Bulley, also gave evidence while crying. She said she had picked up Nicola's daughters from school on January 26th and looked after them in the evening. She said, "We sorted the girls out and everything was normal." And Nicola's father, Ernest Bulley, paid tribute to his daughter. He said, "As a child she was lovely, a little ballerina, she always danced around in her tutu, she was great." He also told the inquest into his daughter's death, "She was a great daughter, sister and mother, we couldn't ask for any more from her." Sophie Cartwright KC, the family's lawyer, said, "What happened on the river bank shortly after 9:18 a.m. was a tragic accident." Ms. Cartwright added, "There has been much rumor and suspicion and speculation around Nikki's death, but the family are very clearly of the view and submit to you that that rumor and speculation is allayed completely when looking at all the evidence." Is that so? We really don't think so. In fact, this inquest, in our opinion, has been akin to a tin opener, one that is threatening to spring open the can of worms everyone has been so desperately trying to keep the lid firmly on. Sophie Cartwright KC continued, "What occurred on the riverbank at probably some time shortly after 9:18 a.m. was a tragic accident for Nikki. It is clear from the evidence that at 9:18 a.m. Nikki increased the volume on the Zoom call, and it appears that what happened after that must somehow be linked to the location of the dog harness found on the steep part of the slope. There has been much rumor, suspicion, and speculation. The family are of the view that that has been allayed by the evidence. The family are comforted by the evidence that Nikki's death would have been very soon after she entered the water. The barrister urges the coroner to find, at approximately 9:30 a.m. Nicola Bulley, on the balance of probabilities, died in the river due to an accidental death. She also urges the coroner to consider that the screams heard are not connected to Nicola's death, and says they do not have relevance to how Nikki came by her death. In summing up the case, Coroner Dr. James Aidley reminded all present that the inquest was not dealing with the police operational response to Nikki's disappearance. He said Ms. Bulley was last seen alive by fellow dog walker Claire Chesham at 9:10 a.m. At 9:18 a.m., she adjusted the volume of her conference call on her mobile phone. PC Keith Greenhalgh examined her Fitbit. It recorded steps in 15-minute segments. On January 27, she walked 4,548 steps between 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. Between 9:15 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. she walked 273 steps. No further steps after 9:30 a.m. At 9:22 a.m. the Fitbit recorded a substantially increased heart rate. Penny Fletcher arrived at the bench at 9:33 a.m. Ms. Bulley was nowhere to be seen, but Willow was found and the dog's harness was found between the bench and the river. Ms. Bulley was last seen alive at 9:10 a.m., interacted with her phone at 9:18 a.m. and Mrs. Fletcher found Willow at 9:33 a.m. This provides a maximum window of time of 15 minutes when she went into the river, said the coroner. He added that the river bank had an almost vertical drop. At the base a stone wall had been built to prevent further erosion, and this provided no footholds or handholds. If you fell here you would certainly enter the water, said Dr. Aidley. He said the opposite bank, 20 meters away, was also a difficult site to climb out from. The coroner said the flow on the river on the day Ms. Bulley died made it almost impossible to get out. The coroner said Ms. Bulley would have been unable to reach the bottom of the river until she had traveled at least 40 meters, downstream. Two experts, Dr. Paddy Morgan and Professor Mike Tipton, said she would have been overwhelmed by cold water shock after falling into the water. The water temperature was 3.6 C would have elicited a powerful response in her, not related to body size but the rapid cooling of the skin. Her clothing, too, would not have slowed her response to cold water shock. Adrenaline, says the coroner, is released immediately, which can cause a person's heart to stop instantaneously. If this doesn't occur, there is an overwhelming urge to gasp. If Ms. Bulley's head was underwater, she could have inhaled 2 liters of water, which would have been a lethal dose. He added that there was a good chance her first breath was underwater. Even if she was above the water, if she then became submerged, increased heart rate and blood rate would have used oxygen at a rate where she would have lost consciousness within 48 seconds, but this was highly optimistic and it would more likely have been 30 seconds with increasingly impaired consciousness, the inquest is told. Dr. Aidley also said the evidence showed Ms. Bulley would have died before reaching the first point in the river where she could have touched the bottom. She had no alcohol in her bloodstream at the time of her death and the cause of death was due to drowning. The coroner said the evidence shows that such was the shock of immersion, Ms. Bulley was unable to stand up or float. The coroner addressed the possible involvement of third parties. He said all of the witnesses who were in the area did not note anyone suspicious in the area of the field where Ms. Bulley was walking. Detective Superintendent Rebecca Smith said CCTV of 3 of the 4 entry points to the field showed nobody acting unusually. CCTV from the 4th point only showed one direction, but this also showed nobody. Police contacted the owners of 700 cars which passed the road and examined dash cam footage, but nothing unusual was spotted, says the coroner. A pathologist said there was no evidence Nicola was assaulted nor that a third party was involved. The coroner said it is likely that Ms. Bulley entered the water at 9:22 a.m. when her Fitbit recorded a significant spike in her heart rate. He was unable to determine exactly why she entered the water. The coroner said he finds that, on January 27 at around 9:22 a.m. Nicola Jane Bulley fell into the river Wye and died almost immediately. He added, there is an absence of any evidence regarding suicide. Dr. Aidley recorded there was no sign of natural causes and the only remaining conclusion is accidental death. So to conclude, buying the bull. We think that the Oscar should be snatched away from Holly Willoughby and handed over to the performers attending this inquest. Sorry to say, but no, we are not buying the bull. Where do we go from here when so many questions still remain unanswered and so many answers that were given are so unsatisfactory? We have a gut feeling that the general public will never stop searching for the truth behind what really happened to a woman called Nicola Bulley, who vanished while walking her dog along the river, in a quaint little town called St. Michael's on Wye. Please like and subscribe for more journeys through the blinker hole.